So we'll go through and do that right now. So let's address dinosaurs first. This is one of my favorite topics for a lot of reasons. I think that the imagery and the imagination surrounding dinosaurs conjures up worship for God. At least it does in my heart. Because if we can go back to the new heaven and new earth, think about in the future what we're going to be seeing. I think there might even be some sauropods and some behemoths there. So when you think about a sauropod and a behemoth and the majesty that they represent with a 120-foot long body and a tail that can weigh over 15,000 pounds. It just evokes worship in my spirit, because what type of a magnificent creator could design and engineer something like that? Because it's both beautiful, but it's also credible scientifically, because we have their fossils, of course, but you look at a sauropod and it's got this offsetting weight thing, because you can't have a long neck without a long tail and vice versa. So they're wonderful, and we think that God gets the credit as creator for these magnificent dinosaurs. But if you look at the secular case, they say, no, these things started about 230 million years ago, and they ended about 66 million years ago. Of course, you've all heard of that, and that's based on a foundation of the idea of random chance and mutations and natural selection, and they just went through millions of years of randomness and vertical evolution and creating all these different species and everything. But of course, the biblical case is that no, just thousands of years ago, these creatures were created by God. They were spoken into existence. That's what the fossil record actually represents when you dig into it deeply. And all these kinds were designed intentionally by the creator. And then Adam evoked authority as steward over those animals by naming them. And God gave him and Eve stewardship over everything. So the very fact that he named these creatures was an exercise of the dominion mandate. So if I have a kid, my wife and I get to name the kid. If I go get a dog, I get to name the dog. And so that's what of course Adam did, is he evoked stewardship and dominion by naming these creatures, and then we believe he named the dinosaurs too. Well, the evolutionists actually don't have a chance to represent and hold up their theory, because when you start really pushing on it and investigating things like this, you can start at the top of this slide and look, well, they've got 78 T-Rexes and they've got 287 sauropods that have been uncovered from the earth. But look at all of these nodes. They don't know where the common ancestor from, and they don't have any transitions. When you really push the evolutionists, is, well, how do you know you got to a T-Rex? Where did it come from? And what was its line? They only have theories. They can't go back and prove with the branching. And now all of these different creatures got started with some form of dinosaurs and then eventually led to all the different ones. They don't have those connecting transitions. And the ones that they do have really fall apart. Send me an email if you'd like more information about that. But this is the state of evolution with respect to dinosaurs. Well, we believe that if you just take one chapter in the Bible, Luke chapter 3, and look at the 77 generations that go back from Jesus through the line of King David and Abraham and Noah back to Adam, there's about 77 generations there. And it says this guy begot this guy, begot this guy, begot that guy, and goes all the way back as kind of summary of Genesis 5 and 10. And then the problem for evolutionists and Christians who don't believe in the creation account is that Luke chapter 3 ends this genealogy by saying that Adam was the son of God. Direct link, not the son of a Homo habilis or Australopithecine or Homo sapiens or any other version of humanity that you want to put in there. It says that Adam was the son of God. And the biblical account, of course, is, well, Adam was created out of nothing. He was created spontaneously out of the dust of the earth, and then God formed him and then breathed the life, the nephesh, into his nostrils and made that man come alive. That was man serial number one. And evolutionists or creationists or Christians who want to believe in old ages, you know what they have to do? They have to find somewhere in this line, the 4,000-year line, to jam 96,000 more years into it somehow. And you guys, that's impossible. It doesn't serve evolution theory, and it doesn't serve creation theory, and it doesn't serve the Bible at all. Because they would say, well, Homo sapiens branched off about 100,000 years ago, and about 7 million years ago from some cousin of a chimpanzee type creature. But look, the Bible's sitting here, and it's authoritative, and God spoke this into existence. He gave us what he wanted us to say. We've got the names of 77 patriarchs, so what are you going to do? If you've got 96,000 more years to jam in this timeline, what are you going to do? Stretch them out? Put in big gaps? make a day not a day, how are you going to butcher scripture to insert 96,000 more years into the timeline? You can't do it. And you know what? People who try, it's really a joke because you're not honoring scripture, nor are you holding to evolution. You're fooling yourself. It's an either or situation here. You either have to say, look, there's 4,000 years of history that goes back, just like the text says, to Adam, who is a son, the son of God, breathed into existence, drawn from the dust of the earth, or somehow you got to torture the script and insert 96,000 more years into a 4,000 year timeline. So it's really easy for me to say dinosaurs fit into this because right before Adam was made, all of creation was present, and there were just thousands of original animal kinds there that he named. So Adam named them all. Adam and Eve took dominion over all that God had created, and everything under dominion fell, including dinosaurs. Dinosaurs turned to carnivorism after the fall because Romans 8 is very clear. All of creation fell. All of creation groans under the weight of our sin. And all of creation, everything that was under that dominion umbrella of Adam and Eve fell and turned into corruption to the point where God said before he sent the flood, he says, behold, all flesh on earth hath corrupted itself. And that was the reason that he sent the flood. So there's a big problem with the theory of evolution right now. And I call it a broken arrow moment for evolutionists. And a broken arrow moment is when the Native Americans would be in a battle, they'd grab an arrow and hold it up and snap it in half. And the warrior would throw it down, telling everybody else, retreat. It's over. We can't do anything more. We got to take who's left alive and get out of here. That's exactly the moment right now in today's time that evolutionists are faced with when it comes to dinosaurs. And that's because when the field of paleontology really kind of started in 1812, from that period all the way up to 1960 or so, did you know, and this is not, it sounds like a bold statement, but it's true. I would challenge anyone to call me wrong on this, but for that entire period up to about the 1960s, did you know that all paleontologists would say at that point during that entire period, all bones are stones? That's what they thought. They thought fossils were completely permineralized rocks, that all the organic bone material had decayed away long since millions of years ago, and all of that was just replaced by an imprint of the minerals. So that was the consensus view within paleontology. Well, what's happened since then? Well, since the 1960s, there's been a litany of papers, 150 plus papers, that have now established through these 150 papers, about 50 of them deal with dinosaurs, but these papers have now established 16 different types of bioorganic materials that simply cannot be millions of years old. So we're talking about things like stretchable T-Rexes, like this is a clip from Mary Schweitzer. Look at this. She had to send it back to the laboratory 17 times because she didn't believe her eyes. This was on several different news shows, but she's grabbing tweezers and she's stretching this. And why did she have to send it back to the lab 17 times? Because she couldn't believe it. Dinosaur bones that are stones should not stretch and pull like silly putty. Here's another clip from Mark Armitage. We put this in our movie where you've got stretchable Triceratops horn after it's been demineralized. You put some forceps on it and some tweezers and pull it apart, and it stretches and it actually rebounds to its original position. So many people knew it was game over at this point, but then we have to look at the cascade in the literature to the point where Mary Schweitzer could not even publish her findings in secular studies. In fact, the peer reviewers of the journal articles would say, no amount of evidence is going to convince us of what you're finding. They absolutely shut the door because they couldn't believe this was happening. So it's 150 peer-reviewed journals at this point, substantiating all of these 16 different varieties or flavors of bioorganic material. And the last two that they just found are dinosaur cartilage and actual nerve cells. So how on earth could these just be rocks and stones? They're definitely not. They're bones. And things like dinosaur cartilage and nerves just can't last for millions of years. Here's something we're doing with a project that we're working on right now. These are slides that we got from Mark Armitage. He's actually been here several years ago. This is a slice on a microscope slide of a T-Rex blood vessel or blood canal. And we can see in here by looking at it that the cause of death from this T-Rex was asphyxia, postmortem intravascular clot within the T-Rex blood vessel. In other words, this creature died by drowning because its blood is stuck and clotted inside of its vein. And we're going to be sending these slides out to dozens of Christian universities and colleges to get this word out that these bones are not stones, that they're actually, relatively fresh bones. So, but the death knell, the broken arrow moment for evolutionists is they can't explain collagen, which is one of those 16 materials that they're finding. And that's because collagen has got a known and calculated lifespan. Before this drama started, before they started finding collagen, they used to have all kinds of rescuing devices and excuses saying, well, it's not really collagen. It was a makeup foundation from the lab technician that fell into the sample and contaminated it. They tried that for a while. You go back and look at the literature, it's really there. Or maybe a ostrich died on top of the T-Rex and its collagen leached into the bone. But then they proved just about 10 years ago that no, oh my gosh, the collagen we're finding in these bones is organic to the creature at the molecular level. So it was case closed, game over. So now they have to try to explain how collagen can last for 66 million years when all the studies say, well, between 10 and 30,000 years, and then some scientists will give it 100,000 years. But one study just came out and said, we're going to give this, if you do ideal conditions, we'll say between 300,000 years and 900,000 years tops. Basically, if you freeze the stuff and put it away, we'll give it up to 900,000 years. That's the current state of the literature. But the problem for them, of course, is that this collagen is inside dinosaur bones that they're dating to 66 million years and beyond. So that's about 100 times longer than they say it should last scientifically. So they're stuck in this conundrum, and the only way out is a rescuing device or some mechanism to stretch collagen out to live that long. And I don't think they're ever going to find it. So if collagen can only last about 1 million years, what is it doing in dinosaur bones that are 66 million years old? And when you get this, you should become a case-closed creationist. Because you guys, this is scientific conclusive evidence. There's no way out of this box, or there really isn't. In fact, when I shared these findings to a class of zoologists, I was invited to speak there by a professor named Charles Darwin. That was really his name, Charles Daly Darwin. He almost sent me packing halfway through my talk because he didn't want the students to hear this stuff. Because it's that convincing when you really get it. So let's use an analogy here. So if one of your steps, like step over step over step like this, represents 1 year, well, how long is about 900,000 years, a maximum lifespan that collagen can live? Well, that would be like walking from Sacramento to Redding. That's the drive that I have to take to get here. So that would represent about how long collagen can last under the maximum ideal conditions under the current scientific literature. They're going to give it up to 900,000 years, which I think is probably well beyond its actual maximum lifespan. But what they're saying is that the collagen that they're finding in these dinosaur bones is like driving to New York and back and New York and back about 4 times. If 1 footstep equals 1 year. Do you see how preposterous that is and how impossible that is and how stuck they are? So now, what can they say? Well, 0% now. They've gone from 100% consensus certainty to the current state of the art is now 0% of paleontologists can say all bones are stones. Think about that shift in just decades from 100% of paleontologists saying, yep, these bones are just stones. Go read the books. I've ordered hundreds of dollars worth of rare books from the 1812s all the way up to 1960, and we've read them. And that's what they say. They were absolutely certain these bones are just stones. But then, of course, all the new literature comes out, and now nobody can say that. So how is it that the scientific community has gone through a 100% shift, but they're still holding to their position? It's a spiritual battle. That's why, because they need millions of years or clutching on to millions of years because they think under that evolutionary paradigm that you have to have millions of years to keep throwing the dice to get the proteins to eventually code to vertical evolution. So they have to hold on to millions of years. So now the nail in the coffin just happened. You're about to see in the literature, this has been tucked secret for months, first time we've ever talked about it. They've actually decoded the collagen that they found in dinosaurs, and they're now making synthetic leather based upon the genetic code and they've reverse engineered the collagen that they found, and now they're making T-Rex purses that will be sold for thousands of dollars. And believe me, I'm going to buy one. I will break the bank and buy one of these things just so I can stand up here and rock my T-Rex, leather and show you guys. Look at how amazing this is. Let's watch a 45-second clip. Our movie clip is 31 minutes long, so I'm going to end this really, really quick. But you have to see what they're saying about this T-Rex leather.
There was a T-Rex that was found in Montana. And inside one of the bones, they found what appeared to be soft tissue, like collagen, right? It's like having a puzzle, but you only have a few pieces, and then you have to fill in the rest. That's very hard to do. There are lots of different pieces of technology that we used. Some were AI, others were genetic engineering. And at the end, we just had this cell that then we can grow and then tell it to produce leather, essentially. Yeah.
So are you guys getting how significant this is? We could spend a whole day on just this topic. They lost the war. When you talk to Mark Armitage, who's been studying this stuff for years, he's really in a place of just relentless. He's like, yeah, people want to go fight the battle and get all in the tussles and argue and everything. But he's like, I know the truth. I mean, there's no way you can get to go over this. There's no rescuing device. There's no way you're going to stretch collagen from lasting only hundreds of thousands of years to 1,000,000 years. It's just never going to happen. So it's kind of a case closed thing. So let's go over briefly how we got all these dinosaur fossil record. Let's go into the Morrison Formation. We can look at a cross-sectional cut of Morrison, Colorado. There's this big slice of mud. It's called the Morrison Formation. It covers 600,000 miles in the middle of America. So let's think about that for a second. It's a mud pancake that's 300 feet thick, that spans across 13 states, and it's 600,000 miles. And that 300-foot thick mud pancake is chock full of every known Jurassic species of dinosaurs. 52 of them are wedged and stuck in this mud pancake. 13 states, 300 feet thick. How do you do that without a worldwide flood? It's impossible. You have to have a worldwide flood for a worldwide pancake that's the size of 13 states. So 300 feet thick. You can throw a plane down in there just for representation to show how deep that might be, or the Empire State Building. But let's just think about that for a second. 300 feet thick mud pancake, and every known species, 52 species are found in that Jurassic layer there. Just incredible evidence for Noah's flood. So here's what all the fossil records look like there. If you span out, the Morrison Formation's in the middle of that cluster, but if you span out wider, these are all the dead dinosaurs buried in the middle of America, 1,800-mile long stretch by 1,000 miles wide. This circle includes 14 states and 3 countries. All of those things are dead dinosaurs. How do you have a bathtub of dead dinosaurs in the middle of America? Well, you need 3 things. You need mud, sand, and ash, because that's what they're found in. So you need a mechanism to produce mud, sand, and ash. And that's exactly what Noah's flood did, because in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, reads like a history book, the same day were all of the fountains of the great deep broken up and the windows of heaven were open. So the flood started on the ocean floor, and it went up 15 cubits upward did the water prevail, and the mountains were covered. And Genesis 8:3 can even be perceived and interpreted as a tsunami-like action, with the water going forth and returning. This is exactly what catastrophic plate tectonics would do, because these dinosaurs are buried in layers that were brought by tsunamis that come in and sheet up and then sheet back off the continent. And that's exactly what we see in the fossil record. So here's the oceanic rift that spreads about 40,000 miles around the Earth. Those are the fountains of the great deep breaking open, producing mud, sand, and ash. And yes, I'm going through these quickly because I want to make sure we get to the movie. And it's going to produce all these subduction-related events, and that's what's going to bring the mud and sand up. And then the subduction is going to cause all the volcanics that are happening along the continental margins. It's going to be producing all of the ash. The fact that the dinosaurs are buried in those 3 products, mud, sand, and ash, is absolutely empirical evidence of the flood. It has to be. The only way you're going to bury them in a matrix of those three products is you need mechanisms that are going to produce those three products. Didn't happen over millions of years. They didn't fall over by a river and just covered by mud and sand. They were covered by mud, sand, and ash because of the volcanism, because of the rapidly subducting plates. It all fits the flood perfectly. So here's a quick animation of what that might have looked like when the fountains of the Great Deep break open. You have linear rifting that's going to come up. It's going to create these super critically heated linear steam jets that are going to blow open and cause tsunamis that are going to come up in waves over the land. And that's exactly how we see the dinosaurs got buried. So, and here's the new sea form is going to form. It's going to hit the continental margins, dive under. That's what's going to be causing the subduction-related volcanics. So that is a really quick overview, but I wanted you guys to see this mechanism before we jumped into the movie. And right now we're going to start the movie, and it goes about 30 minutes, so we might be just a little bit late, but I race as quickly as I could. So here